The United States launching an extraordinary nighttime attack on Venezuela. Dramatic video capturing the U.S. strikes overnight. Explosions ringing out in Venezuela's capital city beginning just before 2 a.m. local time. The night sky above Caracas turning bright orange, massive flames engulfing the air. Those giant plumes of smoke seen from miles away. President Trump confirming the strikes and announcing the United States has captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. Trump writing online, the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolás Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Venezuela's defense minister, speaking from an unknown place, calling it the most criminal military aggression from the U.S. in the history of our country. The massive escalation coming after a significant U.S. military buildup in the region. The Pentagon striking more than 30 boats the U.S. alleges were involved in drug trafficking operations, at least 115 people killed since those strikes began on September 2nd. In a memo obtained by ABC News in October, the administration telling Congress that America is in armed conflict and that drug cartels are deemed unlawful combatants. President Maduro facing drug charges, including narco-terrorism conspiracy since Trump's first administration, after federal prosecutors alleged he deliberately used cocaine as a weapon. Back in 2020, U.S. officials telling Americans they plan to eventually gain custody of the Venezuelan leader. In recent days, more signs pointing to this latest attack. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced lethal aircraft carrier in the world, spotted on New Year's Day, seen in these satellite images, positioned closer to Venezuela's coast than it had ever been amidst the recent bout of tensions just some 200 miles away. And the FAA banning U.S. commercial flights in Venezuelan airspace for, quote, ongoing military activity ahead of the attack. Trump had warned that land strikes were imminent.
We'll start that on land, too. It's going to be starting on land pretty soon.
Saying in a recent interview with Politico that he wants to see Maduro gone.
So how far would you go to take Maduro out of office?
I don't want to say that, but...
But you want to see him out?
His days are numbered.
Can you rule out an American ground invasion?
I don't want to rule in or out. I don't talk about it.
For his part, Maduro had said just one day ago that he was open to talks with the U.S., and in a separate pre-taped interview released Thursday, described a recent call the two had. Saying, I think that conversation was even pleasant, but the events following the conversation haven't been pleasant. Let's hope.
Just absolutely stunning developments here. And Matt, you're learning a lot more about what this operation was like because we're talking about U.S. Special Forces involved.
Yeah, each kind of hour that goes by in this story, Gio, we're learning more and more details that just are more stunning than the next. And so President Trump was actually just on Fox News, and he gave out some details. Forgive me, I'm going to reference my phone here because we're just getting this information in. But he says at one point that Special Forces went into the complex where Maduro was living. They had to break into what he describes as steel doors, the kind of safety room that the heads of state often have to kind of hide in these sorts of situations. He's saying lots of helicopters, lots of different fighter jets, and then he described it as an Osama bin Laden type raid where he could watch this raid play out in real time. So he basically said that Maduro was trying to do everything possible to stay away from this, and yet these special forces were able to get in. Crucially, he says he does not believe, he doesn't know, he said on this interview, but he thinks no Americans were killed. He thinks one of the American helicopters might have been hit. He thinks there might be some injuries. He says, I have to say, a couple of guys were hit, but they came back and they're supposed to be in pretty good shape. So it does appear that there might have been some American casualties in this raid, but this is just these early stages where we're still needing so much more information about what happened here. But this does seem like an incredibly complex operation that did perhaps result in some American casualties.
And difficult to get information because U.S. reporters are not allowed in Venezuela at the moment right now. What's the reaction been like? Because you look at the streets and we've seen those images, lots of Venezuelans appear to be celebrating.
So it really depends on what side you're on here. There are going to certainly be people in the capital, many of whom are on the Maduro payroll or have been in one way or another, or just are true believers who will come out and be very pro-Maduro and want to come out and support the government. But I think it's fair to say that that is a minority in the country. Within Venezuela itself, you've got the vast majority of people who are not pro-regime. Absolutely not. They might be a bit nervous about what's going to happen next. So that's the people in Venezuela. And then outside of Venezuela, we actually have some sound that we can play here with people in the diaspora, people who have left. We know millions of Venezuelans have left in recent years, many because of political persecution. They will be among the happiest. Let's hear what some have to say.
Somos libres, todos estamos felices de que cayó la dictadura y que tenemos un país libre.
Me siento bastante venezolano el día de hoy, después de tantos años, después de muchas luchas, después de mucho trabajo. Hoy es el día, hoy llegó el día y es el día de la libertad. El día que tanto los venezolanos como yo, como todos, como todas estas personas que están acá, como todas las personas alrededor del mundo estábamos esperando.
But the question here, Gio, remains. They can be happy and no question about it, but what happens next?
Right. Is there anyone in line now?
Well, so what you've heard so far is Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, the number 2 in the country. She's come out and said she's not declaring herself interim president, at least not yet. She says Maduro is still the legitimate president there. But it does appear that the majority of his inner circle, senior officials, are still in place for the moment, so it does appear that they're still running the country. But President Trump was asked about that on Fox. He came out and said, well, we're looking at that. He appeared to say that he doesn't want this government to continue, but what he's willing to do to get those people out, to somehow change this to some sort of democratic transition, free and fair elections, we're very far away from figuring out all that, just hours away from what unquestionably was one of the most stunning U.S. military operations in recent history.
So many questions. We'll let you get back to your sources here to get more information. Matt Rivers, thank you so much.